It's just a well-rounded place to live. And it's also, it's moderately, I guess, expensive or affordable depending on where you are in the West End.
Right.
But there's always places that you can find to live.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hey, we have people contacting us all the time about looking for a realtor and looking to move to Richmond, Virginia. If that sounds like you, we would love to be the real estate team that helps you. All of our contact information is below the description, and we can't wait to hear from you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Living in Richmond, Virginia Local Spotlight. And I'm really excited about who we have on today. It is Angela. Angela, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for asking me, Erin. It's great to see you. And now that I can't live right next door to you, this is, I guess, the next best thing, right?
Next best thing, right, yeah. Right. That we still can remain connected.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, Angela. So tell us a little bit about where you used to live. What part of Richmond you used to live in?
Well, you know this already probably because I think I told you.
Yes.
But I grew up in Richmond. My family moved into the Richmond area when I was about just in time for kindergarten.
Okay.
So, yeah, just in time for kindergarten. And the first place we lived was on Floyd Avenue down in the Fan.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have anything to do with choosing that location.
Right.
It just happened to be the location that my parents chose. And I was the only child at that point. We lived there for probably a couple of years. And then we moved to Western Henrico County, where we settled. And you will know this area very well, where Henrico Doctors Hospital is at 3 Chopped and Forest Avenue.
Yes.
So that is where I grew up. And I spent every year of my life in the same house on Greengate Drive until I left to go to college.
Wow.
So we grew up, literally, my brothers and I grew up in the West End of Richmond, and we loved it, and I loved it. And even after I got out of college and law school and came back to Richmond, I came right back to the same area, and lived in the West End, and probably had 3 different houses in the West End.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was my home. I love Richmond. I love Virginia. And if I came back now, did you ask me that question?
Not yet, but that's all right. You're just taking control, which is great.
I was just thinking because, now I'm up in Northern Virginia living in Roslyn, but I go up and down the road all the time to see family. I still have so much family down in Richmond. But if you want me to jump right into what I would do if I moved back home.
If you moved back home and money was no object.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe, and you might go back to the same spot, but if it wasn't necessarily the same spot, where would you live in Richmond and why?
At this point in my life, I would probably move back and buy one of those beautiful old homes in the museum district.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why. I mean, now I'm older. My children are grown. They're gone. I'm kind of out of the big house with the big yard and the picket fence and the dogs and stuff. And I'm ready for a smaller, maybe not too small because the houses in the museum district can be very beautiful and big.
Right.
But in more of a walkable area.
Mm-hmm.
I love being near the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts, which is right there in the museum district. That's actually where my husband and I had our first date.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we had our first date there. There's so many nice restaurants around there. It's a really quick drive into downtown Richmond. It's, and I also love the river there because one of the first things we did when we were dating was go out, stand up paddleboarding on the James.
For sure.
So there's so many fun things to do in that area, and it's more active.
Mm-hmm.
And, there are places in Richmond where I lived, like in the West End, that I loved for the time in my life that I lived there.
Yes.
But I can remember you having some conversations too. There are some places in Richmond that you have to be prepared that they're not as walkable.
Right.
You know, you're going to want to have a car.
Mhm.
When you live down in that museum district area,
You don't
there's
necessarily have to have it.
there's transportation, and yeah, you can walk, and that's probably where I would go.
What would drive you to it? Would you say, Angela, where you live now, and that
Yes.
that you've been able to really enjoy that walkable lifestyle, and that the easy access to other forms of transportation? Do you think that is what has changed where you would want to live in Richmond if you lived back here?
Well, where I live now, you mean?
Yeah. Do you feel
Yeah,
like
where I live
getting to
now.
live where you live now, do you
Mhm.
think that also influences what you would like better in Richmond now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The reason we now live and own our home in Roslyn, which is in Arlington, is for those very reasons.
Mhm.
It's not only very walkable to everything you could possibly need, it's a few steps away from the metro right into Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And there are great places to go around here. And, yes, it definitely influenced that choice of where I would probably live if I moved back to Richmond. And by the way, Arlington just got recognized for being the fittest place in the
Interesting. Well,
United States for the fifth year in a row.
and we know that is very, very important to you for sure.
Yes, it is.
So, Angela, I know that, and that's really interesting. I actually did not know how much history you had in Richmond. There are a lot more homegrown people that live in Richmond
Yeah.
than, say, some other areas a little bit more transient.
Mhm.
Um, it's interesting, though. What do you think it was about the Short Pump West End area, even though you grew up there before? What do you think made you come back after college? What made you go, I want to live on the West End?
Well, first of all, I knew it, and people
Yes.
tend to gravitate towards
What's
comfort
familiar?
and familiarity.
Yes.
So I knew it. I knew people in the area, I had
Mhm.
friends and family in the area, and that would certainly influence if I moved back. I want to stay close to family. The nice thing is that I do have, even if I lived in the museum district, to drive to the West End takes what, 20, 30 minutes tops, depending on
Nothing.
traffic. It's not a big deal at all. But that's the reason why when I left, when I came back after law school, I went back to the West End, was just to, settle back in a place that I was very familiar with.
Mhm.
And I also knew that that would be where I would want to raise a family.
Okay. Yep.
It's just such a great place to raise a family. Um, I love the schools there. I was familiar with the schools there,
Mhm.
and all the different public services and all of the things like that. So it's just a well-rounded place to live. And it's also, it's moderately, I guess, expensive or affordable depending on where you are in the West End.
Right.
But there's always places that you can find to
For
live. But
sure.
yeah.
Definitely, for sure. What would you say maybe some favorite spots that were in the West End Short Pump area? Like, what were some favorite spots you'd go to? Or
I'm
favorite neighborhoods that you lived in? Because you
Yeah.
owned a couple places there.
Well, we lived in Bennington Ridge West, which
Okay.
was off of Ridgefield Parkway. We lived in two houses close to Ridgefield Parkway. One of them was directly across from Deep Run Park, which is where you lived on the
Exactly.
same street.
Awesome location.
Yeah, and it's such a great location. I mean, it's literally right across. You could walk out your door, across the street, and into this beautiful park.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and we had a dog, and it used to be great to be able to just take him over there and spend time walking around and just really enjoying that park.
Awesome.
Yeah. So two houses right there. And then there was a townhouse that was not far from there as well, that I lived in for a while. And it was probably 2 blocks from the Ridgefield Parkway house.
Oh, that's right. That's right. It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, yes, it was. So you can see when I moved, I didn't move far.
No, it was just kind of shifting, kind of doing the old, like getting all your neighbors out and you're like, passing the boxes just up the street pretty much. You liked it that much.
Exactly. It's funny, you hear about that with people. You hear about people that find a neighborhood that they love, and they may live in one house in that neighborhood for a certain number of years, and then they see somebody sell the house
Mm-hmm.
2 streets over, and they're like, and they go move into that house.
They just size up. I think that speaks a lot for an area and a neighborhood, that when people do that, there's a reason.
There's
a reason for sure.
Reason. Absolutely. So I just kind of stuck around that area, but there's lots of great restaurants around there. Short Pump Town Center Mall is a big draw. It's a great outdoor mall, and they do concerts there in the summertime, and there's just always something going on. And then just right down the street from there, they've developed all the new retail, restaurants, and I'm a big foodie, so I'm always checking out a new restaurant all the time. That's why I have to exercise, Erin.
Sure it is. I like food too, and this is why I should exercise more, because my arms don't look like Angela's. Anyway, Angela, we had kind of this unique thing that we were actually neighbors.
Yes.
And then, you and Fred became clients of mine. Can you think, what were maybe some particular memories you had of working with my team and I that you can share?
I can definitely share. So first of all, before I got into the real estate business, which I would have sold my own house, right, or bought my own house by myself, but you were the only person that I was going to go to. And I'll tell you why. You were the only person I was going to go to. First of all, you were my neighbor, and I knew you, and I liked you, and I trusted you. And we say that all the time, right? In business, it's who you know, you like, and trust.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you, and I liked you, and I trusted you. And I also saw the way you treated your other friends, your family, and me. I used to remember you would come by and put little things on my door. You would invite me to little parties at your house. You were just very engaged with your friends, family, and neighbors. And you were top of mind. So that's important too, right? You stayed top of mind with me. And I felt very confident that if Fred and I asked you to help us with what was the nightmare house to try to sell that property, you would be the one to help us do that. And we were so right. I mean, we were so right.
I think we made a good team. We made, it was, I think every single sale, every single home or property, they have there are unique things, unique challenges to each. Everyone might think, oh, everything is just glass. Everything is so easy and all. It's like, well, if that were the case, just like anything, there would be no need for professionals like you and like me, right?
And that's absolutely right, because the one thing that I knew about you was that you knew your areas. You knew the real estate, you knew the market, you knew the neighborhoods, you knew the areas. And you also had this great, and my sponsor calls it tribe. You have the great tribe around you of people that helped you get things done, that you could reach out to when it came to getting things done. Mm-hmm. And so people don't know the house that we're talking about, but it was this very, very old, beautiful, historic home, beautiful, big historic home in Petersburg, sitting in the middle of the most horrible neighborhood, very run down. I can say it because it was mine. Very run down neighborhood that may have potential at some point, but it was really struggling. This and it had some work that needed to be done, but and it took some time and it took some effort, but you never gave up, and you never gave up on us when we were like, oh my gosh. So it was a project, but it was a blessing to have you and your team, because we were busy trying to do other things. We were living in another city. We were trying to get settled in another city. And so we're 2 hours away. And so we could trust that you and your whole team were going to help us get through this. And that's what I'm trying to do now that I'm up in Northern Virginia, is be the Erin in Northern Virginia, where I can take all that where I can take all that stress off of people's plates like you did when they're going through similar type of transitions. So I learned a lot from you. So I have to say thanks.
Oh, that's so kind. That is so kind. I love that. And it was such an honor to work with you and Fred. And I think on the flip side, and you're getting to see the different perspective, but on the flip side, there is nothing better when you are in a career to get the opportunity to work with clients that you like, know, and trust.
Yeah.
So it's a two-sided thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is.
And I think that there are some people out there, and I understand it. I can understand wanting to maybe have the privacy if they feel like things are too close. Oh, well, they're a friend. Can they really be an objective professional? All those different things. Personally, my feeling has always been, wouldn't you want someone that is personally invested and you've been able to see them in other capacities, or maybe been able to observe them working, but from afar?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I would want that for any major thing that I have to do, particularly if I know that it's going to be a challenge or difficult, or I'm struggling with it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's interesting when you hear about statistics that oftentimes people's choice of the realtor that they work with is just whoever that first person is. And honestly, do you want to give that responsibility, which is a pretty massive responsibility,
Absolutely.
to somebody that you barely know? And oftentimes these choices, they're not vetted. It's not like they go around asking for recommendations or referrals or things like that. It's just, oh, okay, I'll let you do it. It's one thing when you're sitting on the side of the fence of being a buyer or a seller.
Yes.
It's the other thing when you're sitting on the side of the fence and you're a realtor. And most people that have never been in your business don't realize all of the moving parts and pieces and how hard it is. And it's not just a quick dollar at the end of the day. There is so much work and effort involved. And so you just don't want to give that project, that responsibility, to just anybody.
Right.
So, that's why I made those comments about why we chose to work with you, because we had observed you over any number of years. We knew your character, we knew your family, your kids, and we watched how you interacted with everybody. And that gave us a real level of comfort, and not to mention all the other sweet things that you did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I love it. Angela, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us and give us some great insight about the Short Pump, West End area, and a bunch of other wonderful tidbits as well that I know everyone's going to find really helpful. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it very much too. And by the way, if people don't know about it, they need to go to Maymont Park. That was one of my favorite places.
Oh my gosh.
I love that place. So that's another one of those landmark places in Richmond. But yeah, it's been fun talking to you, and thank you for asking me.
For sure. And thank you guys again for joining in, and remember, leave everything better.
Hey, we have people contacting us all the time about looking for a realtor and looking to move to Richmond, Virginia. If that sounds like you, we would love to be the real estate team that helps you. All of our contact information is below the description, and we can't wait to hear from you.